Forest, and what he describes in this early scene. The first scene is not so clear to me. She whispers that she's fearful of his journey. He says he must take it, and why does he must take it? Well, we don't know yet. Hawthorne hasn't bothered to tell us why yet. And just as he's, remember, they're newlyweds, married only 3 months, and just as he's about to turn the corner past the meeting house, as it's put, that's the church, the place of worship in a Puritan community. It was an independent worship house, had no connection to any real denomination, and that's pretty much how Puritan individual churches were set up. So as he's about to turn the corner by this church, he sees her melancholy look in spite of, and this has been brought up early on, in spite of what? Her pink ribbons. He wants you to make sure you recognize he's mentioned it first, and now he mentions it again. Her pink ribbons. Make sure you keep note of that, he says, as it were. And then on page 355, the opening page here, he thinks, what a wretch am I to leave her on such an errand. She talks of dreams too. Methought as she spoke there was trouble in her face, as if a dream had warned her what work is to be done tonight. Well, we don't know what this is yet. But no, it would kill her to think it. Well, she's a blessed angel on earth, and after this one night, I'll cling to her skirts and follow her to heaven. That's not quite the way one gets to heaven, I don't think, by clinging to the wife's skirts. So it seems young Goodman Brown. By the way, Goodman is a title all men received in the Puritan community, like Mr. and Monsieur. No, instead they called him Goodman because they're supposed to be good men. So, Goodman Brown, how are you doing today? Oh, not too bad, except I have to go on this journey. He feels as he goes into the forest, and anytime you have in an allegory somebody entering a forest, you know some dark things are going to happen. So he figures there might be an Indian behind every tree, and remember this is 2 generations before the time he's writing about, so he's signifying an earlier time when that could have been possible. But he also fears, and why does he fear this, that the devil might be at his elbow, as the text puts it. So he meets a man who says, you're late, you should have been here before this because the bell at the Boston Common or wherever it is has tolled the hour, and you should have been here earlier. And then this fellow traveler starts walking beside him. He has a walking stick, the fellow who's joined him, that has the likeness, as the text puts it, of a great black snake, made so curiously that it seems to twist and wriggle. So immediately, well, you think of the serpent in the garden and all that stuff. Anybody here love snakes? I have a granddaughter who does. She has a couple of pet snakes. She got to feed them frozen mice. Good job. I don't like snakes. Okay. So, and as they're walking along, this fellow says, "You're slow. Take my staff." And it's now and only now that we learn that Goodman Brown has made a covenant. That is, he's honoring a promise by meeting this man with the serpent-like walking stick. He's also called "He with the Serpent," is the title the text gives this fellow. Goodman feels he's gone too far in the forest, as his good Christian forebears would not do, but he's told, if you look on page 356, his traveler says, "I've been as well acquainted with your family as with over one among the Puritans, and that's a trifle to say. I helped your grandfather, the constable, when he lashed the Quaker woman so smartly through the streets of Salem. And it was I that brought your father a pitch pine knot kindled at my own hearth to set fire to an Indian village in King Philip's War. So he's known the family in that he's led them to evil actions, is what he's saying. And so the family has not been so good. So this traveler that's with him, the troubling fellow, goes on to say that the deacons in many churches have had communion with him, and even the governor talks about other principalities and powers, but even the governor. And he says, but these are state secrets, of which state we don't know yet. And if Goodman Brown felt that he couldn't meet the eye of their Salem minister, if he knew the track he was on now, then that idea that he couldn't meet the eye of a minister if he keeps on with this makes the traveler brings out a big fat laugh from him. From he of the serpent. And Brown then says, well, okay, but he couldn't betray his wife, Faith. And the serpentine fellow says he wouldn't give 20 women like the one hobbling ahead for Faith. And this is an old woman, and Brown recognized this old woman as Goody Closey. He was his spiritual advisor along with the minister and deacon Gookin. I think Hawthorne had a lot of fun giving these names. Deacon Gookin. You gook. I don't know. And when the fellow traveler uses his walking stick to touch the old woman's neck, she cries, "The devil!" That's the only funny line in this story as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it made me laugh. Because that's what he is. Okay. And she recognizes this fellow traveler, this older man he's said to be about 50 in his 50s maybe. He's a previous Goodman Brown. That is, he's the present Goodman Brown's grandfather, she points out. And then she mourns the loss of her broomstick. And that would, of course, identify her, one would assume, in the mythological fables of the time as a witch. So the devil, now he's called that, throws down his stick for her to use, and there's this whole thing about, will it break into a snake like the one Aaron threw down and all that. If you know the other book called Genesis, Exodus, those books. Okay. And finally, Goodman Brown says, that old woman taught me my catechism. And when he throws down the stick for her, boom, she disappears. So we could call the traveler Satan, as he's meant to represent. He pulls down a maple branch to use as a walking stick, and the leaves on it wither as if it's been hit by a week of hot sunshine, as the text puts it. So after Goodman Brown says that old woman taught me my catechism, a friend, the traveler says stubbornly, my mind is, oh no, I'm sorry, Goodman Brown says stubbornly, my mind is made up, not another step will I budge on this errand. What if a wretched old woman do choose to go to the devil when I thought she was going to heaven? Is that any reason why I should quit my dear Faith and go after her? His dear Faith, who is his dear Faith? Did you get that yet? He's going through these dark woods, he's losing his faith. That's what it's all about. What are the pink ribbons? I don't know. People ascribe that as some sort of symbolism to them. but they could indicate innocence or a flag of something. But anyway, what he's struggling with here is faith. He's losing his faith. He's left faith in a sense. And we're going to see different appearances of faith as this moves along. And that's a pretty common situation of, I think, especially of younger people. When you get to high school and college and everybody tells you all this is a bunch of baloney, because we know by now that 13 or whatever it is, 18 billion years ago, the swamp produced something which produced something else, and so on and so forth. So there's a tendency to question faith or have trouble with faith. Did you know that doubt is necessary for faith to exist? If you didn't have doubt, faith would be meaningless. So the extent to which you can recover from doubt only strengthens your faith. And that's something that I think Hawthorne's trying to get at here. I think he's not pleased with the situation he's describing. And occasionally the suggestion of humor, Gookin, the devil, those sorts of moments, lead me to believe that, or to say that he's not pleased with what's going on. So Brown sits down now on a stump because he's not going to go any farther, he said. And just at that point, a pair of people come by on horseback. That's Deacon Gookin and the local minister. And this is just after he said he'd be pleased to be able to tell the minister and Deacon Gookin that he didn't go on with this devil, Satan, or whatever you want to call him, but he's been spending the night with faith. It's not true. Here they come on horseback, talking about for instance, the deacon said he'd rather miss an ordination dinner than tonight's meeting. The ordination of a pastor, he'd rather miss that than this meeting that they're headed toward tonight, whatever that meeting that is. We don't know yet. So after this happens, Goodman Brown looks up at the sky and he wonders if there could be a heaven. And he cries out, "With heaven above and faith below, I will yet stand firm against the devil." You can find that at 359 toward the end of the page. And then he, since he's looking up, then he hears sort of voices and noises and windy suspirations, as it were, and all these things happening up above, as if there's a gathering of a congregation up there. And faith, he shouts then, faith, faith, as if bewildered, wretches were seeking her through this wilderness and through these voices that he's hearing. And what happens at that point? Y'all remember? When he's crying up at her, seemingly up with this crowd of noisy whatevers. He reaches out and sees something fluttering lightly through the air and caught on a branch of a tree, and he seized it and held a pink ribbon. So whatever the pink ribbon meant, maybe her stability, her personality, her young married state, it's divided from her. It's fallen from faith. And he's picked it up there in the wilderness. And now he starts rushing toward this meeting. He says, "My faith is gone, and there's no good on earth, and sin is but a name. Come, devil, for to thee is this world given." So His faith has been given over, and he goes rushing onward, or toward what's ahead, with the instinct that guides mortal man to evil. So now his instinct is to rush toward evil, and also the fiend in his own shape is not less hideous than when he rages in the breast of man, the text also says. So now Goodman Brown has become more hideous in appearance than the devil. This is all on page 380. And as he moves ahead then, Goodman Brown, he hears singing. It's a familiar church tune. And there's a crowd ahead. He sees a rock like a pulpit, 4 blazing pines like candles. And in that light, as it flickers on and off, he's able to see this huge congregation gathered there in this kind of clearing in the forest. And then a person appears in a dark garb of a divine. Pastors were also called divines. So he's wearing the garb of a pastor. And Brown recognizes a score of church members in this gathered crowd of Salem Village, famous for their special sanctity. Good old Deacon Gookin had arrived and waited at the skirts of that venerable saint, his reverend pastor, but irreverently consorting with these grave, reputable, and pious people, these elders of the church, these chaste dames and dewy virgins. There were men of dissolute lives and women of spotted fame, wretches given over to all mean and filthy vice, and suspected even of horrid crimes. It was strange to see that the good shrank not from the wicked, nor the sinners abashed by the saints. So they're mixed together, and Jesus calls this the wheat and the tares. You can't pull the tares out until the crop is full, or you dislodge some of the wheat. So you live with it. The church has always been that way. We're being told here by Hawthorne, I think you could say, especially the Protestant church. Protestant church has been going, for 500 some years? The Catholic Church for 2,000 some? And as somebody said, it's taken the Protestants 500 years to try to straighten things out, and they still ain't got it yet, because they keep getting further divisions. Well, it's interesting. So this man in sable, that's also black, says, "Bring forth the converts," or bring forth the converts. He cries out to the assembly. And then faith appears, as if she's a convert, as if for conversion here. And Brown calls out, "Faith, faith, look up to heaven and avoid the wicked one." That's on page 363. And whether faith obeyed him, he knew not. Hardly had he spoken when he found himself amid calm night and solitude, listening, etc., etc. Now here you go. Here's what happens in allegories and fables and tales and that sort of thing. So had Goodman Brown fallen asleep in the forest and only dreamed a wild dream of a witch meeting? Is that fair? After going through how many pages, maybe 12, 14 regular type pages of the story, is it just a dream? So he can, as it were, find a way out of what he's just said. But it's so, if you will, a dream. But alas, it was a dream of evil omen for young Goodman Brown, a stern, a sad, and darkly meditative, a distrustful, if not a desperate man did he become from the night of that fearful dream. We learn that his wife seems not affected. Now we're suddenly getting the denouement where everything's drawn together. We're seeing the end of his life, and he's going to die. He's going to be buried. When he lived long and was born into his grave, a hoary corpse, hoary is white, white-haired corpse, followed by Faith, an aged woman, and children and grandchildren, a goodly procession, besides the neighbors, not a few. They carved no hopeful verse upon his tombstone, for his dying hour was gloom. So he, by his experience or dream, I think it's a dream, I think Hawthorne's finally saying it was a dream, has been so shaken in his faith that it seems never to return. Whereas faith, of course, faith continues unaffected. Doubt always arises. So that's pretty much what happens here in this allegory of faith and doubt. That's what he's presenting to you all in these characters. Whether it works or not, it's up to you to decide. Can get kind of scary. Huh? Anybody feel it's kind of sick?
Dark and twisted.
Dark and twisted. Yeah, that's a good way of seeing it, right? Yeah, if you let yourself get immersed and you think, oh, yeah, I don't want to be around these people. But it's something that Hawthorne is saying or trying to say, I believe, that this is something we face every day, whether in a dream or reality. And it's something that we therefore have to keep in mind. Now, did y'all do a paper recently? I think so. Okay. I'm not going to say too much about it, except this. You have somebody talking, blah, 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 blah. I put this on the board maybe 6 times, maybe 8 times. I've had you chant where the punctuation goes, remember? Where does the punctuation go? Inside the quotation marks in every instance. There's at least one, I think maybe 2, still don't get it. Ooh, that hurts me. And if you want to know, when you finished up, this is the thing on the handout I put to avoid. I said, this is the thing that drives me up the wall. Why does it drive me up the wall? It's so easy to do. All you're going to do, instead of putting it here where the stupid British do, you put it here where Americans have always done it. You just move it in a different place past this. Tough fix. It's so easy to fix, it drives me up the wall. Okay? All right. That's one thing I noticed. The other was words like it impacted her. I hope she got it cleaned out, That's not a verb. Okay? Nor is the noun impactful. I don't think that's even listed as a word. It's jargon that's filtering into the American language, and we try to avoid it in even informal essays. Another thing, write out all numerals except time and date. Time and date. Otherwise, you write them out. You don't say she was 16/16. She was SIXTEEN. I guess sometimes you could put sports scores. 3-2 or whatever. But I notice that people in sports tend to be in sports can't get over just using numerals. They can't write out numerals. Have real problems doing that because they're used to seeing sports scores, I guess. I don't know. So those are a few things that stood out, and actually across the board, everybody's much better. Your writing's better. In some instances, your grade might not be better because of other technical errors. For instance, you've done a essay. You do 3 Frost poems, say. Okay. So the works cited page, you list Robert Frost. Then you list every poem that you've used, and then you list the source, the book they come from. Or if you only have one poem or one story, you list that poem or that story in your work cited page. Those are the main things that stand out now as I go in my mind over what brought some grades down that otherwise would have been better. Because these technical things you have to get right, just because that's the MLA style, and that's one of the reasons you're taking Comp 2 to learn the MLA style in case you go to grad school. And then some reports that you might do for a company, even a bank or business company, might want you to use the MLA style because it's so easy to do. So that's why you learn the proper technique, and that's why you learn how to attribute what people say and who you're quoting from, and then to use your works cited. Works cited can be 3 pages long if it's a big paper or book. Then it's generally called endnotes. Okay, let's see if we can get some of these handed out here. So if you have trouble reading anything, let me know on it. Keep you printing. It's no game. Yes, sure.
On the works cited page, if it's only one, should it be all works cited?
Just one few before. I didn't mark that. You better. I didn't notice.
And I never said.
That's right. Get rid of that. How'd you do, Zachary? Not bad, huh?
I'm surprised you didn't comment on that last sentence that I had there. What's that? Yeah, after all, you never know, you know, like adding a sentence. Fish fancy, for instance. personality.
It's like Hawthorne. You never know. Unless you can discern the spirits. I thought that was real good. I don't want to say it. So I liked what you did. I really liked it.
I think I was trying to kind of put together our tone on it.
Yeah. Well, it's true that he is, you know, because he's enforcing the law. Any other questions? We had a question here, we have a question there. Any other questions? Have any questions? Button? Any Benjamin? Isn't there Benjamin Button?
I think so, yeah. I don't really good about this one.
Isn't he the one that keeps growing younger?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Like a nursery.
Pardon?
I think it's a nursery.
Yeah, probably like it, yeah.